You said in part these words, "Please don't forget about me."
Still to this day.
The Atlanta Dream's season came crashing down in brutal fashion. An 87-85 loss to Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever in Game 3 of the first round left fans stunned and left WNBA legend Brittney Griner facing a painful reality. Her future has never been more uncertain. For 3 long days after that loss, silence. No posts, no interviews, no press conferences. And if you know Brittney Griner, you know that's not normal.
I don't think I've really gotten through all the way. That I didn't let down, everybody in my family, and it was just. I think I'm still trying to get through that part.
She's outspoken, she's visible, and she's never been afraid to share her thoughts. But this time, nothing. Just 3 days of quiet that had fans wondering, was this the end? Was she walking away? Was this silence the signal that her 12th WNBA season, and maybe her entire career, had closed without a word? Then finally, Brittney broke it. On Threads, she posted just one line: "Needed the weekend. Thank you to all the ATL fans for the support we received this season." Simple, emotional, almost haunting. Not a farewell, but not exactly a promise either. Just a woman who has carried the weight of a career, a franchise, and sometimes an entire league, needing space to breathe after yet another heartbreak.
And Mitchell's been quiet for a while. Not anymore. Wood in Canada with another assist. A big bounce-back night for her. Mitchell dribbles behind the line to take the 3. Howard with the 1.
And that silence, those 72 hours of unanswered questions, might tell us more about where Brittney Griner stands right now than any highlight reel or stat sheet ever could. Because here's the truth: Brittney Griner is standing at a crossroad, and her decision could reshape not just the Atlanta Dream, but the entire WNBA. But why exactly did that silence matter so much? And what does it reveal about the next chapter in her career?
I try to give myself grace. Everybody says give yourself grace. It's so hard for me to do that. At the end of the day, it's my fault, and I let everybody down.
To understand why Brittney Griner's silence after the Indiana loss hit so hard, you have to rewind. This wasn't just another playoff exit. This was supposed to be different. Atlanta came into 2025 riding one of the best regular seasons in franchise history. 30 wins, a 6-game streak to close the season, and the kind of chemistry that had fans whispering, maybe this is our year. For a team that's lived in the shadows of powerhouses like the Aces and Liberty, the Dream finally looked like they belonged on the big stage. And in the middle of it all, Brittney Griner, at 6 feet 9 inches, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a 10-time All-Star. Her presence in Atlanta was supposed to be a statement.
Indiana Fever are heading to the semifinals.
Let's see, driving to the foul line in the paint, lays it in. Sims crossover left to right, gets into the paint, layup, good.
Inside, Boston.
And for Brittney, it was even heavier. She wasn't just part of a playoff exit. She was staring down free agency at age 34, coming off her worst statistical season ever. She'd lost her starting role, battled nagging injuries, and for the first time in her career, she looked human. So when the final buzzer sounded in that 87-85 loss, silence made sense. Because it wasn't just a game ending, it felt like a chapter closing. But how did things unravel so quickly for Griner in Atlanta? And what exactly does this career crossroads mean for her next move?
Brittney Griner broke a 3-day silence after Atlanta's playoff exit to thank Dream fans, explaining she needed time to process the loss. The 34-year-old free agent faces an uncertain offseason after possibly playing her final game in a Dream uniform.
Let's strip it down. Brittney Griner's 12th season wasn't just tough, it was historic for all the wrong reasons. She averaged 9.8 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game. For most players, those are respectable numbers. But for Brittney Griner, a woman who has made a career out of double-doubles, who once redefined what it meant to dominate the paint, and who carried Phoenix to a championship, those numbers scream decline. Every major stat was the lowest of her career. And it wasn't just about production. Griner started the year as Atlanta's centerpiece, their opening night starter in the paint. But a neck injury in August opened the door for Brianna Jones. And when Jones took that opportunity, the dream didn't look back. By the time the playoffs rolled around, Brittney was coming off the bench, playing just 8 minutes in the elimination game against Indiana. Think about that. A 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, a 10-time All-Star, a WNBA icon, sitting on the bench in the biggest game of the season. This is where the silence hits harder, because Brittney knows exactly what those numbers mean. The league knows. Every GM knows. The writing is on the wall. The superstar era of Brittney Griner might be over. And that's not easy to process for someone who has spent her entire adult life as the most feared player on the court. Now, she's at a fork in the road. Option 1, stay in Atlanta, re-sign, and accept a reduced role as a veteran presence. Option 2, test free agency and see if there's another team willing to bet on her name, her experience, and maybe squeeze one more playoff run out of her career. Option 3, the one nobody wants to say out loud, is retirement.
On my way back overseas, had my little Valentine's Day, had rushed that, getting done with COVID, getting over that, getting back to my team, about to make this run for EuroLeague and Russian League. Go through the airport, made it through New York, got to Moscow, made it through the first checkpoint, and now I'm going to my domestic changeover so I can get to Ekaterinburg.
A global name who's been bigger than basketball. Headlines, controversies, triumphs, even politics. Griner has lived in a spotlight few WNBA players ever touch. Her name alone sells tickets. Her presence still intimidates. But on the other hand, the cold reality is that she's 34, coming off her least productive season ever, and just watched another center take her starting job. And that silence after the Fever loss? Fans didn't just hear, "needed the weekend." They heard the echo of uncertainty. They heard the unspoken question, can Brittney Griner still play at this level, or is this the end? That's the tension. Because if she stays, Atlanta fans will love her loyalty, but they'll also expect more than 9 points a night. If she leaves, another team might gamble on her star power, but they'll also have to manage the risk of decline. And if she retires, then her career ends not with a championship parade, but with a first-round loss and 3 days of silence. And here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were the ones who pushed her to this moment. The rookie phenom, the face of the future, just might have sent one of the game's most dominant figures into the past. It's poetic. It's brutal. It's the reality of sports. One star rises, another fades. And for Brittney Griner, that silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of a legend staring at her own basketball mortality. But if you really want to understand what this means, you have to look deeper into her numbers, her body, her mindset, and what's really driving this crossroads. Let's be real. Brittney Griner isn't just another aging star. She's a 6'9" tower who built her entire career on dominance, on being bigger, stronger, and tougher than anyone else in the paint. And for over a decade, it worked. But in 2025, the numbers tell a different story. Her 20.8 minutes per game were the lowest of her career. Same with her points, rebounds, and blocks. A player who once put up 27-point playoff nights was suddenly struggling to stay on the floor for 8 minutes in an elimination game. That's not just decline, it's identity crisis. Because for Brittney, basketball isn't just a job, it's survival. Remember, this is a player who's endured international scandal. Because deep down, Griner knows this isn't just about free agency, it's about legacy. Does she want to be remembered as the fearless icon who walked away on her own terms, or the veteran who hung on too long, fading into irrelevance? That's the weight behind those 3 days. It wasn't laziness, it wasn't drama, it was a legend staring down her own reflection, asking herself, who am I without the dominance? Who am I if this is the end? And that's where the bigger picture comes in. Because Brittney's crossroads isn't just her story, it's a mirror for the entire WNBA. Here's why Brittney Griner's silence matters so much. It isn't just about one player's career, it's about what she represents for the WNBA. Think about it. For more than a decade, Griner was the face of dominance in the paint. She was the counterbalance to super teams like Las Vegas and New York. She was the spectacle, dunks, blocks, highlights that made casual fans stop scrolling. If she really is at the end, that's not just a player fading, it's an era closing. And the timing couldn't be more symbolic. Because while Griner wrestles with mortality, Caitlin Clark is is redefining what rising looks like. Clark is flashy, polarizing, box office in a way the league has never seen before. One player's silence contrasts with another's constant spotlight. One legend fades, another ascends. The cycle of sports is brutal, but it's also the fuel that keeps fans hooked. But here's the deeper impact. The WNBA is at a cultural crossroads too. We're talking about expansion cities, record-breaking TV ratings, and unprecedented media coverage. This league is no longer just surviving, it's building a future. And yet, it's still carried on the backs of icons like Brittney Griner, Diana Taurasi, and Sue Bird, names that built the stage Caitlin Clark now thrives on. So when Griner goes quiet, fans feel it, the league feels it, because it forces the question, how do we honor the legends while making room for the next wave? How do you celebrate someone who's given everything while not letting nostalgia block the evolution of the game? That's why Brittney's silence isn't empty, it's heavy, it's symbolic.
The social media vitriol, which we denounce, it's terrible what some of these players have to endure. And so the hatred, the vitriol, the misogyny, the homophobia, the racism, there's no place for it in sport, and we like to be known in sport as a big uniter.
Louder than any highlight reel dunk, because in that silence, Brittney told us what we already knew but didn't want to admit. This isn't just about free agency, it's about legacy. Will she stay in Atlanta, fight for one last run, and prove the doubters wrong? Will she chase a ring somewhere else, maybe in a reduced role, just to write the ending her career deserves? Or will she do what very few athletes ever have the courage to do? Walk away before the game takes more than it gives. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. Brittney Griner's story isn't finished. Not yet. Whether it's a comeback, a farewell tour, or a shocking retirement, her next move will define how we remember her, as the unstoppable force who dominated the WNBA, or as the legend who knew when to put the ball down and let the next generation rise. And for a league at its own crossroads, that choice matters, because Brittney Griner isn't just a player. She's a symbol of dominance, of resilience, of evolution. So what do you think? Is this the end of Brittney Griner's era, or the start of one last chapter? Because one thing's for sure, silence doesn't last forever. And when Brittney Griner finally speaks, the entire basketball world will be listening. If you're fired up about this story, make sure you like, drop a comment with your take, and subscribe, because this conversation is just getting started.